So this project is concerned with the causes and consequences of catastrophic forms of violence against women that have taken place in conflict situations in Africa. And it's clear from the research that's been conducted to date that there's certain characteristics that have defined conflicts and the experience of women in those conflicts in places like Rwanda, Uganda, DRC, Liberia, Sierra Leone. And in terms of the contribution of my work to this project, I'm most interested, and the team that I'm working with is most interested in thinking about how what happens today can be better understood by looking at how practices that took place in the past have shaped what happens today. So there's a number of different themes that are relevant here. The first is thinking about the kind of bundle of rights and responsibilities that are historically associated with marriage and the types of control, reproductive, productive, that husbands have traditionally exercised over their wives in various contexts. And one of the impulses behind this project is to think about how that bundle of rights can be connected or associated with a different but still comparable bundle of rights that are associated with patterns of historical enslavement. So how and on what terms have the ways in which marriage has been practiced in Africa and also beyond relate or connect to similar parallel systems of enslavement that we find in Africa and beyond. So it's in thinking about how those two connect, marriage and slavery, and on what terms that they connect, that we can begin to think about what a legitimate marriage looks like, in the sense not that marriage might be positive, but in the sense that marriage might be recognized as members of a community as all rights observed correctly. So what does a legitimate marriage look like? Who decides? And what happens within marriages in peacetime in terms of how husbands and wives relate. So the impulse here is that model and the history behind that model is crucial to thinking about what happens in conflict situations. It's not that what happens in conflict is a deviation or rupture to a pre-existing model. It's an extension of some of the features of that model. So we see in conflict situations the experiences that women endure follow certain expectations that are accrued in peacetime. So when the conflicts are over, and they try and return to their families, they quickly discover in a lot of cases that their families recognize their experiences as legitimate, and they're told to effectively go to their husband's family for support, and that their children effectively are recognized as having a father, which is ultimately tied to a pattern of extraordinary sexual violence and captivity and the like. So it's in thinking about that extension. What happens in peacetime creates models and expectations that happen in wartime, and what happens in peacetime has a history. And in thinking about that history, this project wants to go, well, these things aren't static, these things aren't constant, but there's something distinctive about both marriage and slavery that we need to understand in order to understand how and on what terms people regard the captivity of women in conflict situations as legitimate and how they respond to it.